And just remember thinking, well, I guess I just have to move on. And so I tried. And that's probably the worst thing you can do. But again, even at school, I didn't get support, counselors, teachers. So I had to manage that whole childhood abuse and losing your mother. I had to navigate that on my own. And I was aware at the time that I had been through abuse because I even thought at one point maybe not having children because I was afraid I was going to pass it on. But I made a commitment, and God was blessed me with a beautiful son, and he was not abused, but it was definitely a consideration. But at 19 was when I realized that there was something going on with me. I could tell that I was in a lot of pain, um, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. So that's where I started my healing journey at 19. But again, back then there wasn't a lot out there. There wasn't trauma therapy. Didn't even know a lot about trauma. And so I just kind of fumbled through, and I did some growing, but I spent the majority, like I mentioned earlier, majority of my adult life completely in survival mode. And what that is like is you're on constant alert. You're always looking for something to go wrong. That is what your mindset is you are looking for something to go wrong so you can fix it before it turns into something bigger. So imagine always being anxious and just, I guess, overwhelmed a lot of times. And then if something does happen, you know, it's real easy to lose complete control, which I lived with that for many, many years. And it's interesting because I went from one type of family and I married into a very similar type of family. They were not directly abusive with me per se, but there was a lot of the same kind of mindset thinking. And I stayed with that husband for 25, we were married for 25 years. And it was a really rough marriage. And the reason why I'm kind of going through this is what my abuse did. I made some choices in my life, including in relationships that weren't healthy. And it's not that they were bad people, it's just unhealthy people come together, right? So, yeah, just like healthy people come together. and so, and I don't like to disparage my ex husband at all, because we were both a mess coming together, really. And I got out of that. The one thing that was told to me by my brother when I was about 11, and this will really explain a lot about the choices I made in relationships, is, and I 100% believed it, is he told me that nobody loved me, that all the family, friends, and everybody, nobody liked me. Not only did they not like me, they didn't love me. And he told me as so matter of factly, it was like the conversation we're having here, very calm. And I just remember being like my chest, like someone punched me in the chest. I was so devastated. And I believed him 100%. So imagine taking that into your adult life. So I was always on the hunt to find somebody that loves me, right? And I have to have somebody that loves me. So I got out of that marriage and I got right into another relationship because, again, I had to find that, I had to fill that void in me and I was doing the wrong thing. That ended up being after I married him, and I did marry him quickly. It was a very narcissistic relationship. I didn't know what the term was at the time, but I knew, excuse me, I'd gone through enough healing that I knew his behavior was really bizarre. And he didn't show the behavior until after we got married. And we were married for just over a year and a half, and he unfortunately passed from cancer. And then I did a deep dive. I did a deep dive within myself and said, okay, I've been making some choices here that are not healthy, and I'm the common denominator. What do I need to do to change that? And so at this point, there's more trauma therapy out there. There's EMDR, which I have done and which is fabulous, and it has really helped a lot. And I just did some really deep soul searching and did a lot of reading and just looking deep within and understanding more and more about myself and about my past. And the one thing that is really in doing my podcast, I've done so much research on trauma and the education, what it has done for me, and learning about trauma, learning about abuse and how it affects us has been able to allow me to separate my identity from, I'm not a victim. I can separate it. There's a space between me and my behavior now. And now I understand my behavior. I can forgive myself for my behavior, change my behavior, and feel so empowered. Instead of feeling helpless like I felt before, that I was just going through life and doing this stuff because I just couldn't help it, which was very frustrating. I took my power back. And I'm responsible 100% for what I do and what I don't do, how I respond, how I react. And that's been really empowering. And so that's a very Reader's Digest version of my story.
I like it because you mentioned a number of things that people can learn from, right? Like you mentioned being stuck in the victim mentality because a lot of people are trapped
Mhm.
in it because it's comfortable. It's like that old sweater out of your
Yes.
closet, right? Makes you feel
Yeah.
good, doesn't matter how beaten and worn it is. And then there's also something else you mentioned is that you took back your power. I know a lot of people, when they feel powerless, they feel isolated. Because they feel isolated, they sit in their feelings, and because they sit in their
Yep.
feelings and sometimes their thoughts, it leads them to do things that they look back, they're like, oh my God, did I
Yes.
actually do that? I remember someone
Yes.
told me a story. They began to soothe themselves by bringing chaos into other people's
Yep.
lives. So what they would do is they would put on this mask that they're healed, that they're healthy, and
Correct.
then find these people and I don't want to say wreak havoc, but what they would do is they would disrupt their lives. And sometimes a lot of people that are healed, they want to heal other people because they know what it's like to not be healed,
Exactly.
right? Like, did you find
Exactly. Yep.
yourself trying to figure out, okay, this is my healing journey, but I want to make sure that I'm not damaging other people along the way?
Yes, yes, that is one. Yeah, when I realized I was doing that, because you mentioned something really interesting. When I was in survival mode, and when you get, I call when you get squeezed, you'll do things that you wouldn't normally do. There were things that I did in survival mode that I wouldn't do outside of survival mode. And that's the things that I had to forgive myself for. Right. But yes, I mean, helping others has been, I didn't realize it, but it really is a passion of mine because I know what it's like to suffer like that. And I also know the statistics. I also know that most people who suffer from childhood abuse don't even mention it for 30 to 40 years. That's a long time to suffer, long time to suffer. And so, yeah, if we can shorten people's suffering and get that, because you can heal from trauma. You can absolutely heal and manage trauma so that it no longer affects your life. I know my life is better now than it would have been probably if I didn't have the abuse. That sounds crazy, but the journey that I went on and what I have learned out of that and the growth and the strength that I have in me, I wouldn't know if I had it or not.
Like, this Lisa is carved in the fires, whereas before
Yeah.
she didn't have that she didn't have that desire or that passion or maybe that situation to create the person that you have now. It's very interesting how you have people that will be coaches, therapists, mentors, whatever title you want to give them, right? When you
Right.
ask them why they got into it, they'll point to a trauma that they had.
Yeah, they call it post trauma healing. That's what they call it, post trauma healing. And there's so many of them I've ran into, and I just find it wonderful that they want to pay it forward. They want to help. They've gone through their journey, they figured out what worked for them, and they want to get it out there for others.